Yes, thank you
Perfect.
so much, Theo, for the kind introduction. And I'm very happy to be with you all today. Thank you for bearing with me. I can't really walk properly, but I promise my brain is working super well this morning. So I'm very happy to be here. And I would like to thank Sarah. I would like to thank Theo, and I would like to thank Ellen from the UOC tech team for allowing me to do this keynote virtually. And I'm going to share my screen, and I hope that you will see it appear. Here we go. I'm going to present my slides so that you see them. Wonderful. So my name is Svenia. I'm very happy to be here, very happy to meet you all. I want this keynote to be super interactive, so you will see I will ask you many questions. There will be many opportunities to interact with me. As Theo said, I have been on a world tour. I've been to 20 countries now with my EdTech tours, and I've been exploring the role of technology in education and in training, and I'm passionate about the topic. And then I'm also an ecosystem builder. I love to build ecosystems. I love to build networks for education technology, and I started in France, where I'm based, with EdTech France, our local association that now gathers more than 500 startups now. And then I did the same with the European EdTech Alliance. It's an alliance that represents startups from across Europe, 26 different organizations represented in the European EdTech Alliance, organizations like the Swedish EdTech industry, EdTech Denmark, EdTech Germany, EdTech Austria, EdTech France. We have many different education technology associations in Europe, and I wanted to bring them together because together we are stronger, and we are a European voice now, and we talk regularly with the European Commission, the Council of Europe, to change things and advance technology in education. So yeah, I also wrote a book about my tours, my travels, to share best practices, but it's also what I want to do today with you. So I'm super happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. And now I'd love to meet you. I'd love to know more about you. So if you can please scan this QR code and tell me who you are. Are you a PhD student? Are you a professor? Are you a teacher? Are you an educational technologist? I'd love to know who's in the room. So if you could please scan this QR code with your phone and answer the first question about who you are, what you do. I'm very curious to know who's in front of me. All right. I'm going to have a look live to see. All right, excellent. Well. This is great. A lot of university professors in the room, some students, a lot of researchers, teachers, educators, L&D professionals. Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful. That's my kind of crowd. Excellent. Thank you for participating to this first question that I have for you. Then I would love to tell you a bit more about my explorations, the fact that I've been traveling to all these countries and having a look at how education is evolving with technology in Poland, the UK, France, Spain, Denmark, the US, Chile, Australia, Germany, Estonia, India, South Africa, and the rest. And so there was one country in this list where I didn't find what I expected. I picked these countries because they seemed to be very innovative in their own continent and front runners of the implementation of educational technology. So in your opinion, which country which country in this list was not absolutely not what I had expected? You can raise your hand. I know there's a mic going around, so you can raise your hand if you have a hint of the country where I was quite, I didn't find what I expected to find in this country. So I had a lot of expectations, but yeah, there's one country where I was really, I was maybe because I had so many expectations, I was a bit disappointed. Okay, any guess? Any guess on the country?
We have Finland.
Finland. Right. True, I had many expectations, but Finland lived up to my expectations. So it's not Finland. I will come back to Finland, but no, it's
Chile.
not Finland.
Chile.
No. Chile was tough.
Germany.
Chile was very complex. Germany still, no, it wasn't Germany. It's not in Europe. It's really a country that was far from home. So
How about Senegal?
no, it wasn't Senegal. It wasn't Senegal. Senegal was, I learned so many things in Africa, actually. They were super innovative. They do frugal innovation at its best. So, no.
The US.
The US was, the US was something. There is a big gap that I did not expect, but still, the US was in many ways informative, and yeah, I learned a lot of very innovative practices. So no, it wasn't the US, although it's a tricky one.
Okay, we have Spain as another guess.
No, Spain was really impressive. I was really, really impressed with what I saw in Spain, with the pace of innovation in Spain compared to other European countries. No.
Okay, how about the Ivory Coast?
No, it's not the Ivory Coast. Well,
Maybe-
you almost done every country on the list.
Maybe India.
No, India was really impressive. Also, I found a lot of technology being used in such an interesting way to increase the access to education also in rural areas. So no, they're quite front runners when we talk about the space of tech ed.
Okay, last guess maybe is France.
No. No, France has a lot of issues, but it's still quite advancing in edtech. No, it was South Korea. South Korea was really, for me, I didn't expect what I found there, because I thought I would find a super innovative country with lots of technology in schools, and a smart use of technology, because it's the country of Samsung and other tech giants. And so I really thought that South Korea would be mind-blowing. But actually, the education system in South Korea is what it is. I don't know if you know a bit about the education system, but it's a very academic. It's very much focused on hard skills, on academic analytical skills, and they are, it's very top down. And when I went to visit schools and spending time also with teachers, I realized that the system wasn't innovative at all, in the sense that the pedagogy was still very top down, and the students were still, in the role of students, passively listening to a teacher, the sage on the stage. And so I didn't find any, large scale experimentation of technology in education and in the classroom to really make pedagogy more interactive. So I really had high expectations. And in fact, it's still a country where rote learning and, being academic and not talking, not interacting in the classroom, it's also cultural, of course. But I had expectations and I didn't find what I was looking for there, although it's a very interesting culture and I loved exploring that culture. But yeah, that's the country where I I had a lot of thoughts about for months afterwards. So yeah, if you have any questions during this keynote about these different countries or about my travels, my explorations, please feel free to raise your hand and ask. So I just want to stop here and say that I'm going to take a big picture for the next 10 minutes because I really want us to have a look at the world, where we're heading, the future of work that is right now being explored. We don't know which jobs are going to exist in 10 years time. So what should we teach? What should we teach? How should we teach in a world of uncertainty where skills evolve so fast? And so this is the main challenge that I see right now, is that we need to change the way we teach and the things that we teach for a world of uncertainty where adaptability is going to be the #1 skill. And so I would love to know, same QR code, if you go back to the same website, WooClap, I would love to know your stake on this. And I would love to know how fast are skills and job evolving in your opinion. Let me just change. I need to go back to WooClap and change the question. All right. So I would love to know what you think about the next question. The second question that I want to ask you, because it's a key question. Let's see, for those who already scanned. On average, workers can expect that X% of their existing skill sets will be transformed or become outdated over the 2025-2030 period. What would you say? Is it 39%? Is it 15%? Is it 75%? Is it 52%? And it's super interesting because I see that you're quite pessimistic about this question. Most of you think that it's 75 or 52%. And that's very interesting. That's very interesting because it evolves so fast that we are barely capable of updating our curricula and our programs when we talk about universities, business schools, and other higher education institutions that are not capable of adapting to the pace of change. And this is an issue. So well done, everyone. Well, we have a clear winner. It's the #1. 39% is the right answer. 39% of their skill sets, of our skill sets, will be transformed or outdated by 2030. And that's a lot. It's not as much as 75% or 52%, but it is a lot. And so we really need to prepare for that shift. And we really need to prepare our kids, our students, to learn how to learn. They are going to be lifelong learners. And this is a fact. Second question that I have for you. Same link. I can do this again, display the QR code for those who don't have it. I would love to know, in your opinion, in terms of jobs who will be created versus jobs who will disappear, who will be lost. What do you think? Because we hear a lot of things. We hear that AI is going to replace us all. And so, I would love to know what you think in terms of the proportion of jobs who are expected to be created compared to those who are expected to be lost by 2030. Is it 75 million jobs created for 75 million jobs lost? Is it 170 million jobs created for 92 million jobs lost? Or is it 530 million jobs created for 50 million jobs lost? All right, interesting to see that. And I see that the majority is right about this. Well done. Maybe you heard that stat in another conference during EDMEDIA. But yes, the right answer is that 170 million jobs are expected to be created versus 92 million jobs expected to be lost. That's a 78% million job who are, going to remain in the end. So this is a study from the World Economic Forum. I don't know if you heard about that Future of Jobs report. I strongly recommend to read it. They have done an excellent work interviewing more than 1,000 global organizations about their expectations and their prognosis about the jobs that they will that the job where they will hire and where they will lose some jobs. And so that's the reality. If we look at the total job growth and loss, in green the jobs created, in red the jobs displaced, and in that's a big chunk in gray the jobs will continue in an evolving labor of markets. So it's still a small proportion of jobs, but it is a trend that is accelerating quite rapidly. Another question that I have for you, in your opinion, what are some of the largest growing jobs by 2030? When we talk about the jobs that will appear, the new job, the jobs that still will persist in the world of AI, what type of jobs will persist in your opinion? I'm very curious to know what you think. What are the jobs that are not ready to disappear and that will stick in your opinion? I'm curious. Care, yes. Healthcare, interesting. Construction, engineering, cybersecurity. Yeah. Data innovators, data analysts, manual laborers, telemedicine. Interesting. Yeah, doctors, social workers, absolutely. Service jobs, absolutely. Coding, that's a big one. Prompt engineering, yes, prompt engineers are going to be the jobs of the future. A lot of job descriptions involve that right now. Yeah, software engineers, social entertainment, yes, yes, excellent. Yeah. All right. And now I have another question for you, and we're going to see the data afterwards, but what are some of the largest declining jobs this time, in your opinion, the jobs that might disappear first? What do you think? When we think about jobs that might be lost, what comes to mind? Administration, manual labor, retail, journalist, accounting, data analysts. I saw the data analysts in the first question, and now it's in the second one. That's very interesting. Radiologists, technical writers. Tourism, interesting one. Media developer. Yeah. Yeah, super interesting. Coding is also here, although it was in the jobs that will be created. Coding is a big one. Do we still need to learn how to code? It's a big debate right now. Some say that yes, we need that because we need to understand the algorithms and we need to understand how AI thinks and learns. And some say, well, AI can do it for us, so why bother? So it's a big one. Interesting. All right. Well. Let's see what the data says. Yeah, when we look at the data, I hope it's big enough that you can see, but the top largest growing jobs, and I wasn't expecting number one to be farm workers, laborers, and other agricultural workers. Obviously, AI is not there yet. It's there. It helps farm workers a lot, but we still need people in the fields. Light truck or delivery service drivers, software and application developers is still largely growing, and salespeople, also, drivers, because we don't have self-driving cars, and it's 5 years from now, we won't have them either. So nursing professionals, obviously, care, university professors, higher education teachers, secondary education teachers are also on the list. And I'm not, it's obviously we need teachers. Obviously, we need a human and social experience in learning. And then the top largest declining jobs: cashiers, ticket clerks, yes, admin, assistants. Yes, a lot of these you said. Accounting, that's also what you said. Data entry clerks, obviously. So it's super interesting to see that trend. And so, yeah, thank you for participating in my little survey. You did well. We are facing a skills gap. And this is a big one. 96% of chief academic officers at US universities who believe their institution is very or somewhat effective at preparing students for the world of work. And at the other side, 11% of employers agree that universities teach graduates the skills they need for success in their workplaces. It's a Gallup study in the US, and I find it so interesting to have a look at these data and see, okay, there is a gap. There is a big gap. How do we bridge that gap? And so I would love to know what you think the top 10 fastest growing skills are, the skills that employers said they really need most. And for those who need the QR code, here it is once more. The top 10 fastest growing skills according to employers, according to chief HR officers, chief people officers in the industry and in the service area. I'd love to know what you think these top 10 skills are, and then we'll see if we teach them effectively in schools and universities. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think these skills are. So one skill per answer. You can answer as many skills as you want. I'd love to know, right, problem solving, collaboration, critical thinking, yes. AI literacy, of course. Problem solving, yes. Teamwork, people skills, automation, yeah. Creativity, analytics, punctuality, AI literacy. Excellent, excellent. A lot of communication, yeah. Wow, yeah. Prompt engineering again as the top skill. Fully, yeah, wonderful. Indeed. If we have a look at these top 10 skill, what do we see? AI, big data. Yes, you saw it right. Wonderful. Network cybersecurity. I also heard in some of the first answers that you felt cybersecurity was a top growing job. Definitely. Technological literacy, AI literacy. Well done. Exactly. Creative thinking. We're still creative as humans, and so it's important that we think outside of the box and that we are creative. Resilience, flexibility, agility. We need to be adaptable. And so this is a big one. Curiosity and lifelong learning. We need to be lifelong learners. We need to know how to learn through our entire life, our entire career. And that's so important. Leadership, social influence, talent management. And number 10, which is super new and wasn't there last year and the year before, environmental stewardship. And I really love to see that appear on the 2025 top 10 fastest growing skills. So this is really interesting. And now I'm asking myself the question, are we really preparing our students for this? Are we really teaching them these skills? And because skills evolve so fast, are we really capable of adapting our curriculum, adapting what we teach to this very fast-paced environment where we are right now? And so for me, there's collective action that is urgently needed to addressing this growing skills gap, which worries me. But now comes the second part of my keynote, where I will share some best practices I've seen across the globe that are already bridging that skills gap at their own level. So yeah, and I would love to share those with you. We need to bridge the skills gap with better, more relevant, more efficient K-12 and higher education. And yeah, and that's where we come to the second part of my keynote, which is the top initiatives that I've seen across the globe that are really making an impact. First of all, New Zealand, the Manaya Kalani schools. I'm going to start with the kids and then I'm going to grow and go until university. So this school network is a public school network in New Zealand that has created the Learn, Create, Share pedagogy. In New Zealand, every school can have their own pedagogy if they follow the curriculum and if it's safe and sound for kids. And this pedagogy was implemented in one school in a very underrepresented area of Auckland, the capital city. And these kids were really having some hard time studying because they are from a Maori background. They didn't even talk and speak in English before coming to school. So their first language is not English, it's Maori. And so in these areas of Auckland, they quickly thought about something that could help these kids evolve and learn effectively. And so they have a very smart implementation of technology, but that's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about their learning framework, the Learn, Create, Share framework. It's a pedagogy that they started together with teachers, with parents. It's a co-created initiative, and it has had so much impact in this primary school, which is Point England, that other primary schools around asked to be trained in the framework. And now at least 25 schools, public schools, are using this framework because it works so well. Learn, because they need to learn some basic skills in literacy and numeracy. And obviously, they have to learn these skills. So yes, we teach them the curriculum, the national curriculum, but we teach it in a very creative way. So at the end of each chapter, they're asked to put together an artwork. May that be in mathematics, may that be in English, may that be in history. They have 2 hours as an evaluation to be in a group. They have to choose a group and together collectively create an artwork. Could be a poem, could be a song that they record, could be a video, could be, I don't know, a sculpture that represents what they learned. And they represent it in a very creative way. And that's then there's not going to be any rote learning with a proper exam. It's going to be very creative and project-based learning with their own agency. And what has been found is that their memorization is much better through these projects and through their creativity. They remember much better what they learn than rote learning and the typical tests. And so now they've implemented that for each chapter. And kids are so happy. I spent a few days there and kids are so happy at the end. When comes the time for the evaluation, it's so exciting. They choose a group and they work on an artwork together and they produce something out of their imagination and creativity. And it's just incredible to see how fast they're learning, because they also have like the typical exam, but not as frequent as other schools, and they see that exam scores are going up when they introduce that new learning technique and pedagogy. And then share, because students are getting asked to share every week, to share on a personal blog. They have a personal blog from grade 2, and they need to share a learning of the week. They pick a learning, and they do that during an English lesson where they can also learn how to write, and they have to write a blog post about one learning per week. So Friday afternoon, it's blog moment where they need to share on their blog, personal blogs, what they've learned. And that's reflective learning. And that makes learning visible. And this pedagogy is also based on John Hattie's work of visible learning. And so it's really interesting to see these kids getting so excited about sharing on their blog, which is visible to their parents, to their grandparents, to the world, even if it's very secured. Yeah, they're so excited to do that every week, and it's it basically helps them stick the learning and memorize it, to have that moment where they reflect on their learning and share it on their blog. So this had such an impact on these kids, on their national exam levels, that, as I said, 25 other schools in the district picked up that methodology and adopted it. So that's for me a best practice. Then another best practice from Finland this time. It was an experimentation actually in the University of Aalto. And it was made together with Jarmo Suonimen, who's a service architect. So he has, no educational background. He's just a service architect, and he loves designing spaces. And so he thought about a new concept of school as a service, putting the school outside of school walls in the middle of the city, and here in this case in Aalto, in the middle of a campus, of a university campus. And so 300 high school students from near Aalto went to this newly created space, which is not a school. It was a big open space where they could meet and have lunch together and do their homework together. It was like a big co-working space based at the center of Aalto's campus. And the classes were happening in, in basically environments around this center, around the heart here. And so it was the university library where they had their English lesson. Then they walked to the Museum of Modern Art, which is 1 kilometer away from the campus, to have their arts class. And then they walked to another university building where they have their history class. And so all day long, they work in a 1 kilometer radius from the heart. They walk and they go to different environments to teach different classes. And so first of all, physical activity increased the study time and the focus time of students, because the more you move, the better functioning your brain is. And so students were moving all the time and finding themselves here to do their group work, project work together, to have lunch together. And that was the heart where they found each other again. But then, it was organized so that they used the premises of the university to teach, and the premises of the city, because, Museum of Modern Art, a Tuesday afternoon, there's not many people there. So why not use it to teach a class of 30 kids? And that worked really well at that experimentation. It was an experimentation, so it didn't last, but it worked for at least 2 to 3 years. And now they're thinking about moving to another city and have the city become your learning playground, because there are many unused space in a city that a school can use. And I love this idea of getting the school out of its walls to bring it to the world and have a city be a learning playground. Again, I love this idea. That really struck me. I found it's a very innovative way. Obviously, the use of technology is everywhere here. It's everywhere. It's basically creating the basic their calendar for the week, their agenda for the week was all done by technology, by AI. And then obviously they have, in Finland they don't have school books. It's same for Denmark. And high school, they have their computer, they bring their computer to school, and they work on their computer. So these countries are very digitized when it comes to high school students. I was very impressed in Denmark to see that, the bags that they wear are quite they only contain one laptop, and I find it interesting to see that in other countries you still have bags full of books that are super heavy. Second example. Third example from Spain, M Schools. I love this example. It's a public-private partnership that works extremely well with, the state of Catalonia, together with a private foundation, and they went together and they created M Schools, which is a series of programs for teachers to teach with technology and with mobile technology. So they have M School History. It's an app that history teachers in Catalonia use a lot. It's an app that teaches history in a very interactive, with AR, a very interactive way. And then they have their typical program called EDMEDIA, mobile education, that I'm going to talk about now. It's really about, it's for middle school students to learn that their mobiles can also help them do good. And so for 1 year, they have a 1 year program where they are taught to develop an app that has a social impact. So they first need to find a group. So in groups, they need to find a big challenge, a societal challenge that they face in their communities, in their cities, in their schools, a challenge that they want to solve. And then they have 1 year to build an app that solves that challenge. So it's social entrepreneurship meets, learning how to develop an app. And they are in middle school, so 13, 14 years old, learning that their mobile phones is not just for scrolling on TikTok, but can also be used for good. And that's an excellent example. They've trained more than 10,000 kids in Catalonia to use their mobiles for good. And they work with the MIT App Inventor. I don't know if you know that tool. It's a very easy tool to create some mock-ups. And some students are so fascinated and they really want to develop an app, and they learn how to really develop it and launch it on the Apple Store and the Google Store. And I followed a group that was working to reduce food waste in their communities, because they saw that food waste was really present. And so they worked for the entire year. They developed a logo, and they were so motivated to basically create a map of your neighborhood. When you click on the app, you are in the neighborhood, and then pops up the bakeries that still have some bread left and that will make a discount if you go and get the bread before a certain hour, or the local cheese shop. And so basically it's now used. It's an app that they really developed. They learned how to code and develop the app, and it's now used in their community in Barcelona. And I thought this was such a great example of 14 years olds being taught that they can be change makers, that their mobile phones is not just for fun and for playing games and for scrolling around, but it's really a great tool to bring change in this world. And so I really love that program, and I strongly encourage you to have a look at it. mschools.com. And it's an amazing public-private partnership. It's so rare in education to have highly functioning PPPs, so it's really worth mentioning. Other innovative institutions in K-12 that I found during all of my, study trips, and the list is long, and I'm sure you have many more ideas that I'd love to know about during our Q&A. In Barcelona, if you plan to visit Montserrat, go to the Colegio Montserrat. It's impressive what they've been putting in place. The use of technology in this high school is absolutely impressive. So yeah, Barcelona was one of my key highlights, I must say. So yeah, if we now go to higher education, who knows this one? Minerva University, by raise of hands. Okay, so I'm gonna describe this because I see that some of you may not know it, but Minerva University has been started by a former Harvard dean who was very frustrated with Harvard and thought, I can't do whatever I want. I don't want to do my lectures in large lecture halls. I don't want this to be non-interactive. I want some interactive learning done right. And so he started a new type of university, fully online. He created with his team the entire tech stack, the entire online classroom, like you see it here. It's entirely created by Minerva. And what it does is really, it's an online university, fully online. And what it does is that you have undergraduate students coming in for 4 years. It's a 4-year undergraduate degree. It's an American university now, fully recognized. And so basically students come in, and during the 6 first month of the program, they only learn about soft skills. only learn about soft skills. So they took the top 10 skills from the World Economic Forum and they said, we need to have a proper curriculum for soft skills. So the first 6 months are only dedicated to learning how to think critically, learning some creativity tools and techniques, learning how to debate, to actively listen, learning to convince and lead by example. And so they have a soft skill curriculum like I've never seen in any higher education institution. And they really focus the first 6 months on that because they want all students to have these soft skills as a base. And then they go into the academics. And so I find this, first of all, very interesting. Second of all, it's fully online. So what it allows them to do is basically Minerva University is a sort of world tour. They start the first 6 months in San Francisco. Then they go to Berlin for 6 months. Then they go to South Korea for 6 months. Then they go to India for 6 months. Then they go to South America and Brazil for 6 months. And then they go to Taiwan. And then they finish in London. And basically, their entire undergraduate is a huge world tour. And in each city where they are, they need to learn a bit of the language. They need to find an internship for at least 3 days a week. And they will follow their courses online because the professors do not follow the world tour. So they stay in the US mostly or in Europe. And so all the courses are online, but they need to have 3 days a week where they work, where they find an internship or where they can also have a volunteering position. But they got immersed in the local working culture, and they do that in all of these countries. And when they come back in 3-4 years, they are fluent in soft skills. They have lived in 8 different countries with 8 different working experiences. They have chosen a major like in any university. So you can have you can basically major in business, you can major in natural sciences, you can major in computer science, you can major in arts and literature. And they have, and at the end, they're much more employable, and that's what the stats show. They're much more employable than any other university student who finishes its undergraduate degree. And so they have a placement rate before even before they graduate, they already find a job because they have perfect profiles. And so it's very interesting because Minerva is cutting the cost of university, which is extremely high in the US, because everything is online. There's no campus. There's nothing. I mean, each time the students cohort travels to a city, they just rent a building for 6 months and they all live together there. But there's no cost of building costs or campus costs. So the cost of this education is 10 times less than a traditional degree, and that makes it very much accessible. And now it's tougher to get into Minerva than to get into Harvard because it has become so popular amongst the young generation, and that's understandable. Then it's tougher to get into Minerva than to get into Harvard nowadays. So they were really effective in building that because it's born in 2019, so 2018. So it's very recent, and they still achieve the extraordinary. Hyper Island, that's another case that I wanted to talk to you about in Sweden. It's a university that was created in a former prison on an island in Sweden, and it's quite extraordinary to go there and to find yourself in this former prison that is now turned into this super creative space where students learn how to work in creative industries. And also it's kind of a business school for creative minds. That's how they call themselves. And it's very interesting. They have a model where it's only about experiential learning. They don't have any classes, any top-down lessons. It's only project-based learning, experimental learning with real projects, real clients, and the readiness for change is one of core to the pedagogy. So basically, they need to work for real clients. For example, Electrolux is one of the big partners of the school, and Electrolux is a brand from Sweden creating vacuum cleaners, for example, or kitchen appliances. And they asked them every year to help them on a marketing campaign. And they asked students to work for them on real projects. And the teams that gained their attention are then hired to implement that. And so it's so interesting because they trick the students a bit. They say, yeah, you have 1 month to create that campaign. And after 3 weeks or after 2 weeks, they call them and they say, it's tomorrow, actually. So it's not in 2 weeks, it's tomorrow. And they want to trick them like this to make them adaptable, to make them flexible, to change. And they do that quite often. So now, students are aware, but I think it's a very interesting way to teach, is really to teach in this world of uncertainty. To add that in your teaching can also be interesting. So yeah, I really love the pedagogy at Hyper Island. It's really worth checking and looking at, and that's clearly an institution that prepares students for the world of tomorrow, because it helps them become adaptable and flexible and agile and creative, and they only work on real life projects. So there's very little theory, a bit sometimes they have classes, but it's more in a flipped classroom mode. And then it's really learning by doing, working on real life projects. And then other innovative higher education institutions, you might know many of them, and I'm super curious to know more about your own institutions. I'd love to discuss that with you in the Q&A. But yeah, I put a list together. I think, the London Interdisciplinary School is a wonderful example of how you can use problem-based learning. They only use that. Students arrive, they have one challenge per week that they need to solve, interdisciplinary, and it's really impressive what they've been doing. So yeah, I put some names here, and I'm sure you have others, and I would love to hear them. And yeah, if you're curious, go check them out. Excellent. Then we have a lot of challenger universities. So universities like Minerva that challenge the status quo, that challenge the traditional universities like we know them, and they're very numerous. So I put, again, it's a list of universities that are the challengers, that coming for the older, more traditional, more settled universities. So it's a very interesting list. I recommend that you have a look. And yeah, I'm gonna talk about the boot camps in the Q&A because it's a very interesting model. And yeah, thank you so much for your attention. And I would love to go into the Q&A. I think I'm on time. I would love to go into the Q&A and hear what you have to say about all of this, and also about your own institutions and what they do to prepare students for the world that is awaiting. So thank you all for participating.
Thank you.